what's going on? My name is Lorenzo and this is my very first YouTube video. As far as procrastinating, this is the most overdue thing that I've had on my checklist for about the past year. If you're watching this video, that means you probably came from Instagram, so you know that I'm a full-time vintage reseller and that I make a bunch of content for the videos and products that I need to sell via Instagram. And with all this content I've been making, me not having a YouTube channel has just been swirling around in my head. But more importantly, having a YouTube channel has been on my mind for about the past maybe 6 years. Me and my cousin Dom have always kind of been into the same things, and he was kind of an inspiration to me when I was younger because he was just the older kid who was into the same stuff I was into. So because he was into it, I thought it was like extra cool. We would talk about shoes and fashion and vintage and things like that growing up. And he would always say, you gotta make a YouTube, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Just because he thought I almost had like the personality for it. And then I started a TikTok account, and that's kind of where content creation for me started. As far as how I get into shoes and fashion, it's mainly through my cousin Dom. I was born in 2004, so the fashion and streetwear that I was seeing growing up was like the skater Justin Bieber kind of vibe, and my cousin Don was born in 2000, and the style he was used to seeing was what his dad was wearing, so he was wearing that. It's mostly the 90s and 2000s athletic, so he was growing up wearing a lot of Jordans or basketball shoes back when Nike basketball was huge, and then his shoe collection was huge. And then I was like, oh wow, he's my older cousin, whatever he thinks is cool I obviously think is cool, so I was into shoes then. The first pair of shoes I ever bought for myself, just because I was on a little bit of a different route in terms of fashion and the way that I was presenting myself at my time, which for the time was pretty normal. The first pair of shoes I ever bought myself was a pair of Osiris's. They were like $64.99, which is very cheap for a pair of shoes. And then once I was about a freshman in high school, my cousin Dom had put me onto a brand called Supreme. Supreme is kind of where the love for fashion and streetwear kind of started for me. And at this point, me and Dom were collecting shoes and streetwear for the same exact reason. We would buy shoes off of Marketplace, each other kids our age, things like that, and basically resell them to afford shoes for ourselves. Same thing with Supreme. Now around this time, YouTube was all I would watch as a kid. As far as shoes and streetwear, I was mostly watching people like Kaisomar, Blazendary, Harrison Neville. It's kind of foreshadowing actually, because I was really into Jacob Starr and Paul Cantu, which was put on to me by Dom and put on to him by a friend of his. So we were watching that before we were even into vintage. Now I had another friend at this time, his name was Dax. I would hang out at his house a lot, and his sister nicknamed me Zoe out of the blue one day, and it kind of stuck. So the business name I came up with was Zoe Got Kicks, and I made an Instagram account. But I first got into reselling in a sense with restoration. So I would clean a pair of shoes for a buddy and post that, or completely repaint the midsole of a pair of shoes for $20. And then once I was stacking up money, I would buy a pair of shoes off of somebody, completely restore them, and then sell them for as much as possible. And then once I realized that this was kind of not what I wanted to do, and it was just a way for me to stack money, it was fully just buying and selling. I was no longer restoring at this time, and this mainly was sophomore year, I want to say. Fast forward about a year, junior year of high school, I started to get into vintage. This is probably right after COVID year, and I just started thrifting. Thrifting was not congested back then how it is right now, and then I started trying to implement that into Zoe Got Kicks on Instagram, TikTok, and I would do reels and videos, and I would try to dye stuff and different things just to kind of break necks and try to get out there a little bit. Now, how I actually got into vintage, my cousin gave me a vintage tee. I actually still have it. Here it is, little Bulls tee, 90s Bulls tee. No hate to my cousin, but I actually never wear that tee. I only paid $15 for it. The only reason I still have it is because it was the first vintage tee that I bought because it was vintage. It was cool because it was old. And then senior year, I was pretty much known as the sneaker slash vintage guy at my school. I had a whole page in the yearbook for it. It was kind of basically who I was at the time. And then around summer after senior year, I got a job at a restaurant, and I was doing school, working at the restaurant, and reselling. And it was a lot. It was very stressful, to say the least, because I would go to school and then I would go to work the same nights I had school, and then I had assignments due at midnight, and I didn't get off work till like 8 or 9. And then I had to resell, and then it was almost like I was working at the restaurant, and that was basically pushing aside everything that I was building up for the past 4 years. But school was obviously the priority at the time. Flash forward about a year, I still worked at the restaurant, and I had actually dropped out of college. I don't regret doing this at all. Obviously, it hasn't paid off to the point where like this is the best decision I've ever made. And then I came in touch with Ryan Smiley over at Smiley's Vintage Supply in downtown Rockford. I kind of got in it with them over there by just buying and selling and trading vintage with him at the shop. Flash forward about 6 months or so, I actually worked at Smiley's Vintage Supply, and then my personal business, Zogot Kicks, was more vintage than kicks at the time. And I was kind of fighting which side I wanted to go about in terms of the business, because it was kind of deceiving, and then the sneaker market just crashed, and it was not that profitable, and vintage was growing, the demand was growing, and the demand for shoes was falling. And I'm like, the choice is clear here. This is what I'm into. So then I did the big rebrand in September of 2024. Zogot Kicks was officially renamed Highland Street, and I sell on Instagram where I promote, and I have a website in the bio of the Instagram, company TikTok. I also have a Depop, which is basically a discount page of the products on the website, because I'm always trying to filter the website and get new products and push old stuff out. As far as what my life looks like now, I work at Smiley's Vintage Supply. I own my own reselling business with my own company Instagram, TikTok, website, Depop, and I am a buy, sell, trade vintage supplier in the Rockford, Roscoe area in Illinois. I've done about roughly maybe a dozen vintage events since I got into it, and the growth has been really good. You know, you start out with the $20 Target clothing racks and the white hangers, and then maybe 6 months ago I upgraded to U-line clothing racks, which are about $110 a piece, and then all wooden hangers, which are about $1 a piece, so that adds up. So if you're ever at vintage markets and you're like, why is this hoodie so much money? It's cool, but I don't know if I would pay that amount. You're not necessarily paying for the hoodie, you're paying for the time, money, and labor to source, clean, price the actual article of clothing. You're also paying for presentation. It's the same reason why storefronts price their stuff higher, because they put a lot of time, money, and effort into their presentation, so they feel that they can get a little 5 or 10 extra per clothing item. That's just another thing to think about. And I plan to grow this YouTube channel to basically gain exclusivity with my reselling business. Now, I'm kind of just like a local, small vintage reseller at this point, and I'm thinking that if I continue this YouTube journey and show drops, maybe collection videos. If you don't follow me already on all platforms, make sure to do so. Highland Street Co. on Instagram, TikTok, Depop. highlandstreet.com is the website. I upload new inventory about once every 2 weeks on there. I try to do curated drops, stuff that I'm into, stuff that everybody's into, and I mainly try to keep stuff a little bit under market to try to be a curated, high quality supplier at an affordable price, so that people my age, college students, things like that, can still afford good pieces that they're looking for. I try to basically push out these drops with 3 main factors, and that would be curation, quality, and seasonal. And I just have so many drops lined up for spring and summertime, so I'm very excited for that. If you have any recommendations for YouTube videos, I plan on doing videos for upcoming drops, maybe how I curate things or how I price things, and just the whole journey behind photo shoots, basically the whole process from buying to selling, and kind of like the art of it all. But yeah, if you have any ideas, let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit me with a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.